Welcome back to Micaiah Messenger for Rapture 2024, Part 5. Oh, just when you thought it was over, it's just about to begin. Oh, that's right. But first, we need you to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss any of these videos. Very important videos that we're going over here. And also, if you could help us out and support this ministry, we really do need your support. It allows me to take the time to do this for you. So thank you so much for those of you who have helped support in the past. And if you can continue doing that on a regular basis, that would be very helpful. Also, if you can help us at 100% Bible, hit 1,000 subscribers. We've hit 600, but we need your help getting all the way to 1,000. So please help us out over there too. Preaching the word, man. Come on. And then also check out some of these videos that are on the website that kind of relate to what we are talking about today. This is Daniel prophecy video here and timeline videos and so forth. Also, if you want to share some of the things that God is doing in your life with us, and maybe you have a picture to go with it, a video, a thought, or maybe an audio recording or something, send that our way, and we may be able to share that in an upcoming video as well. You can even sketch something out. We've done four parts of this so far, and I want to make sure that you see all those 4 parts because there's important things in each one. And I always go over more, obviously, than just what you see on the page. So be sure to check out each video for that. It's been a time of a great expectation. We're looking forward to the Lord coming, and it's very exciting. And we kind of go through these cycles, and people get kind of date crazed and sort of fixated on things. And it's one of the reasons I waited to do part 5 today, because I know there was sort of another wave of date craze going on. And so I'm like, okay, let me wait this out. But just want to remind you, as Jesus said in Matthew 24, to be on alert, for you do not know which day the Lord is coming. But be sure of this, that if the head of the house had known at what time of the night the thief was coming, he would have been on alert and would not have allowed his house to be broken into. For this reason, you must be ready as well, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour when you do not think he will. So I always get a kick out of people who say he's coming at this time on this day. So okay, you pretty much count on him not coming at that day and that time then, because Jesus basically told us right here, he's going to come at a time and day that you don't think he is going to be coming. So with that in mind, I want to encourage you because even though people bounce from date to date to date, there are more significant things we can be looking at that really do point to this time period in a very strong way, and that's not looking at an hour or a date, as Jesus said, but it's looking at a time frame, and so. This period that we've been talking about here in this series, and I hope you'll watch the first 4 parts and the rest of the series, because I am going to get into some possible things going on in calendars and looking at the stars and so forth. But the more important thing is that we recognize how God works, that we recognize God's cycles. And I see Keith asking for a prayer request there. Absolutely, Keith, we'll keep you in prayers. And if you could keep me in prayer as well for my eyes right now. I'm kind of going through something with my eyes right now, so if you could be praying for me on that in Jesus' name, I really appreciate that. There are cycles that God uses and time phrases that God uses throughout the Bible. And from the very beginning, as we've talked about in other parts of this series, God started counting this world that we live in sevens. That's how he counts. And that's how he counts, at least for this world, this paradigm that we're in. And so he does it throughout the Bible in many different ways. And we've gone over that in the other parts as well. But I want to hit on that again because what I'm sharing with you here is very significant stuff. I know some of you got that in the comments, but I know some didn't. And I want to make sure you understand how significant this is. Much more significant than just kind of bouncing from day to day to day. This is God's pattern. This is how God works, and this is how he does things throughout time, throughout the Bible, and throughout history. So it's very significant. And if you could give me a thumbs up, I appreciate that. Just let me know that you can hear me, okay? Because we're always live here at Micaiah Messenger. And so we appreciate your support to keep us doing that. But, God does cycles. And what we've been talking about is these 490-year cycles that is 770 times 7. So 70 times 7, and then 7 times 70 times 7 is what we're looking at here, coming up to this year, 2024, which is very significant in and of itself. I mean, that should give you some chills, some chilly willy should run through you right there. But Jesus was very clear about this when Peter asked, hey, how often should I forgive my brother? 7 times, wink, wink, wink. No, Jesus said not 7 times, but 70 times 7 times. He was really referring to this period, this 490-year cycle that really is based off of the initial 7 years of time, then 7 times 7, which is the week cycle for Shavuot, Pentecost, that we just went through. And then there's also 49, 7 times 7 years, 49 years for a Jubilee cycle. So this is something God has been doing from the very beginning and does in days, in weeks, in months, in years. And I mean, it's just how God works for this world that we're living in. So it's very significant. It's something we really have to take to heart here on what God is revealing to us. So if we keep this in mind, basically Jesus was saying, no, the forgiveness period is 490 years. It's a time when at the end of that time, no more, party over, right? Forgiveness is done, so to speak. And so that's pretty significant. So when we look at this in Joshua, okay, I want to point out a few things here, and then we'll get into this year that we're into right now. I always add a few extra things for you here, not just the year that we're looking at. But I went ahead and did another cycle of my own. Well, I mean, that one is one I worked on with another brother, but initially, and then I updated it for this as well. But I went ahead and did it again today. But instead of looking at what this is, if I go back one, what this is looking at is the if you notice, there's 8 banners there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right, from 1406 to 2024. So what I'm looking at in this next frame is the period in between that 490 years. That's what I'm looking at, which it's basically the same thing, but I just want to look at it from that perspective. In other words, the rise and the fall. So these are 7 490-year cycles of rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. Right, rise and shine, rise and fall. Right, there's this pattern, and that's why we have these arches in here, of rising and falling and rising and falling. And so it's really interesting because it starts out with them entering the promised land, and then you get the rise of the initial kingdom of Israel, the Davidic kingdom, King David and King Solomon and so forth, and then it goes down, it collapses again. And then you get this revival, right? And then it goes up, and then the first temple gets destroyed, and then they come back and they rebuild it, right? And so it's sort of a starting over period again, so a rise and a fall. And then we rise again to from 425 to 64 AD. Then we've got the end of the Old Testament, or the end of the law and the prophets. And Judaism essentially is an end to Judaism as they knew it, the establishment of Christianity, and then the Second Temple is officially destroyed to kind of end off that time period as well. And then we go into a rise of Christianity, and then the end of the Western Roman Empire. And then we go into what we're going to talk about today, the rise of the Holy Roman Empire and the Catholic Church being divided. And then we get into the last one, or not the last one, but the sixth one there is the Protestant Reformation. And then Daniel 9 being fulfilled there of the wall and the moat. And then we go into this period, which is 2024, a Renaissance period, America, and could this be the fall of America? Is that what's going to happen? Is that the fall that's going to happen this year? The end of the USA, rapture, tribulation, second coming, etc. So these are very significant things, and they all have very spiritual implications. It's not just like, oh, there was the second WAR that took place, and not that those can't also have spiritual implications, or, there was a famine or something like that, something else significant. And there was some of that too. We had the plague of Justinian in there as well. But what's really interesting is to see how God's movement, his church has been moving throughout this entire period. So I want to talk initially about Joshua entering the promised land. And some people pointed out, well, boy, these seem to be kind of maybe 10 years early or something to that effect. Well, what's interesting about it, when you think about it, when Joshua went into the promised land, what happened there was they entered the promised land, yes, but they didn't really take the promised land when they first went in. They had to then go through a process of taking the promised land and actually owning it, so to speak. And that took, they estimate, 7 years. Isn't that interesting? 7 years to conquer the promised land. See, they entered the promised land, but they hadn't conquered the promised land. That took 7 years, and then they estimate another 7 years to actually settle the promised land following that. So that's kind of intriguing. So when you think about entering the promised land, I talked about this before when we were looking, at this period. Are we going to enter the promised land while the world enters a period of 7 years? 7 years of tribulation. So basically, they went through a kind of tribulation when they had to fight the Battle of Jericho, and they had to fight AI. We'll talk about that a little later. But, all these kind of interesting connections there that Joshua had to go through for 7 years, even though they're entering the promised land. So it's the same kind of thing. We're kind of being, it's like being beaten into the gang, so to speak. But you got to go through your struggles and your trials to have that baby. Are we going to go into this 7 year period now, similar to what happened with Joshua there? And what's interesting is, you have that promised land there. You also had that in 64 AD, where you have kind of a 7 year tribulation where the Christians get persecuted for 7 years, and then finally the temple kind of being taken out in 70 AD sort of puts an end to that. And you'll see that kind of today too. We see kind of a time period like that. So that's something interesting to consider. Now, something else I want to show you about the Joshua story that I found very interesting is there's a lot of sevens. The first battle they fight is Jericho, where there's 7 priests carrying 7 trumpets, and on the 7th day, they march around the city 7 times, and then they blow the trumpets. I mean, do you think God's trying to hit home the 7s here to us, guys? I mean, it's over and over and over again in Scripture. So I want to look at a couple calculations here just for fun. So basically the 7 priests with 7 trumpets on the 7th day, march 7 times, right? So if you do that, you get 2401. I thought that was kind of interesting because 2024, is it 10 backwards? Are we looking at October? I'm going to talk later about some things going on in October. I know you're like, oh, but what about July? But 2401, is it 1? Is that like signifying the first year of things happening in 2024? I don't know. Just throwing it out there, kind of fun to think about. Then I thought, what if I just do 7 times? Now the word 7 appears 14 times in that chapter of Joshua, which I thought was interesting because that's 7 times 7 as well. That's 3 7s there. But I thought 7 times 14, okay, so that's 98. 9 times 8 is 72. And then 72 times 2 is 144. Are we talking about the 144? Jesus sent them out 72. So there's a lot of interesting things there that we could explore some more. So today we're going to talk about the year 1044. Okay, this is our next cycle. So 490 years from 554 to 1044. Again, go back and watch the other parts. So there's this dude, okay, this guy, you might be familiar with him. It's spelled Pope. And that word actually means father. I don't know if you ever knew that. But yeah, they've been fooling you the whole time. So when Jesus said, call no man father, everybody calls this guy father when they don't even know they're calling him father. So I'm calling him the dude, okay? So just so you understand. But anyway, so this dude, so basically what happened here in 1044 was the greatest doodle scandal in history, where a guy named Dude Benedict, he actually sold the papacy. He became pope, or the dudacy. He became pope, and he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. Now, of course, we know that there is no such thing as the dude or the Pope, but there's no such thing as that. That's all fake, and you call no man father, so it's all made up anyway, but he sold it, right? So that's very significant that he sold this thing. It kind of already shows you the fall of how of everything crumbling there and falling apart. This was the guy he sold it to. It was like his uncle, or the God, or what they call the GOD, FATHER of the child. So he's not God and he's not his father. But anyway, he sold it to this guy, and this is the man, Dude Benedict, and he was known as a demon from hell, so vile, so foul, so execrable that I shudder to think of it. Are a few of the kind words that other people had to say about him. So this dude basically sold his birthday. He sold this the leadership of the church to somebody else, to his significant relative there. It reminds me of this time when this dude, Simon the sorcerer, tried to buy the gifts of God from Peter. He says, how dare you think you can buy it? Like this is something you buy and sell. So very similar, obviously something God is not going to be happy about. But it made me think of these dudes here. Now, do you know that this guy on the right, he also went by the name Benedict? What are the odds of that? And he also left office and handed over his dudacy to this dude on the left, Francis. And could it be that he sold it as well? I'm sure in some way he was bought out, right? So I find that kind of intriguing. The same story, history repeats itself. So there's this prophecy of the dudes that you can check out here. And in this prophecy, the Benedict dude is the last dude before you basically bring in the end times with this dude overseeing things until finally everything is destroyed and the dreadful judge, i.e. God, judges his people. So I found that kind of intriguing when you think about it. Now, when you look at this time period, we've got 1044 where things kind of begin, right? And these three rival dudes try to claim the office, and then he sells the office, then he recants, and then basically everything starts crumbling from here, and this leads us to the Great Schism of 1054. So you could argue this was maybe a 7-year period where things really kicked in here, maybe after 1046 when Henry deposed them all, then you get the 7 years before 1054 here. But that's kind of intriguing as well. And so you had this East-West schism that finally happens in 1054, and this is where the Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches break apart, and it's a break between them two, and they go their separate ways, so to speak. There was also this Battle of Calabria in 1044, where they basically solidified the power in Italy, it seems, and it says this began the foundations of a state that would become a powerful and world-shaping nation. So you really kind of get the solidification there of this Roman Church, Catholic Church ruling the world. One other interesting thought about 1044, and that's when gunpowder may or may not have been exactly invented, but it's the first earliest known written formula for gunpowder, so it was ability to pass that knowledge on so that things could get explosive. So if things going to get explosive this year, what are we looking at happening this year in this cycle of rise and fall? I'd love to get your thoughts in the comments, and please join us over in the fellowship as well, and please help support this ministry. Guys, thank you so much. Wishing you all the best and all the blessed, and Maranatha.